Right. So with that said, let's begin with the enrollment logistics. First, we will begin with the application procedure, and then we will conduct our analysis of the differences. So when it comes to Stratford, the enrollment logistics is as follows. As you can see, the age is typically the is 2.5 years to all the way up to eighth grade is the average populace. That's their age. At preschool is 3 years, pre-K is 4 years, and K is approximately 5 years. But they do have some restrictions, so it's not exactly 5 years. When you go onto the website, you'll see that there are some age restrictions. For example, if you're trying to get into K and above, elementary school level, you will have to be born before a certain month. Say, for example, in California, the typical one is December 2nd. The teacher-student ratio for K and below is 1:12. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because when I say 1:12, that is the ratio, but usually for K and below, it's because there's two teachers, and the same classroom does have about 20 students. So it's not that the classroom is small, but there are two teachers. And for other, which is for the higher elementary school, it's 1:24. So one teacher, 24 students typically is what we see. Some campuses might vary. The application process is on a first come, first serve basis. There is a deposit, and there's a deposit penalty for quitting the application or withdrawing from the application. The online schooling, now this is very important for parents who are interested in the enrollment for online schooling. The reviews for Stratford are actually very mixed. So the problem with that is that the teaching quality or the faculty that's hired for online schooling is actually selected through a different process compared to what they do for their normal selection of their in-person teachers. So you will see that the in-person teachers are at a different level of quality. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all bad, but the reviews are certainly mixed. The location, if you're a early parent, so when I say early, I mean if you're a younger parent, say you have just moved into the Bay Area and you actually haven't even decided your living situation right now, but you want to plan ahead, and obviously schooling is one of the most important decisions you'll take while buying real estate, is Stratford usually ends up in locations that are very, very metropolitan areas, very cosmopolitan areas. So in Palo Alto, San Francisco. But this is a plus for parents who haven't purchased housing yet, is Stratford usually goes into areas where there is no other top public or private school. So basically no other schools to compete with, but they are still busy areas. So a lot of the students, what they do usually is, not the students, sorry, the parents, what they do is that if they want to save some money, they would go for a district which is relatively cheap to live in. It's the Bay Area, nothing is cheap, obviously, but they will go for that sort of district, and then they'll save some money there, and then they'll send their school to Stratford because no other school is there in the area. So Stratford serves as a good location choice. So that is something, definitely, if you're a new parent who hasn't really looked at where to live yet, that is something you need to look into, because Stratford is a good option for cost saving. Now, in terms of the enrollment logistics for Challenger, the enrollment age is similar. It's 2.7 years, so 2 years, 9 months. The preschool, that's where it begins. Pre-K is 4 years, and K and above is 5 years. And again, there are some specific restrictions. For example, if you're in Texas, the enrollment age is 5 years old by September 1st. For Nevada, it is by September 30th. And for California, it's by December 2nd. I don't know why those differences might be, but they are pretty strict in terms of their recruitment for students. The teacher-to-student ratio is slightly better. It is 1:14 on the Challenger campuses. Now, this is an average, of course. Each campus varies by the location. And if you go on the Challenger website, the application process does demand that there will be an interview where you need to pass certain scholastic expectations, and student needs to be motivated, and all these keywords just goes to suggest that the students need to be comfortable with the sense of discipline. I will get to the different philosophies of both the schools, but if you go on the website, you will simply realize that for both the schools, it's different philosophies. And if you're trying to break in, as long as you really echo their philosophy, you will get in. It's not that difficult as long as the student has good grades. And obviously at an elementary or lower elementary stage, you don't have a lot of evidence for grades, but you convey the sense of discipline. For Challenger, the application process and admission will be relatively smooth. So here's the steps. You tour the campus, you read the policies, and you submit your application and the deposit. That's similar for both the schools. And I do recommend to tour the campus for both the schools, especially Stratford. The Stratford campus varies a lot based on the location. Similar for Challenger, but not to the same extent. And besides that, in terms of the enrollment logistics, part of the biggest part of the logistics is, of course, the finances, right? So let's dive into that. Stratford and Challenger both are very similar, but let me break it down by pre-K, elementary, and high school. For Stratford, the pre-K is rounded down to 23 for the year. Elementary is 21, and very important, Stratford does plan on opening its high school around 2022. So for parents that are in upper elementary and are worried about, okay, where do I go from here? Stratford does have their high school coming up. And in the initial years, at least the admission from upper elementary to high school will be pretty smooth. So you don't have to worry about that. And as you can see on the right side of the screen, you'll see a graph for the breakdown. If you're interested in, say, a half day of schooling, which is just sort of like daycare. If you're interested in that, that's the breakdown. There is also a 10-month full school day. And as you can see, the elementary is slightly cheaper than the pre-K in terms of finances. This is very similar to Challenger, where the preschool is about 20 and elementary is actually 21. So that is the key difference here. There is an application fee, which is fixed for $125. In Stratford, the application fee, if you start the application and you abandon it, there will be a penalty charge. So keep that in mind. That will be a non-refundable $500. So if you do start the application, I recommend completing it. If you compare both these schools, however, to say something like Harker, which is one of the elite private schools, you will realize that the ROI, return on investment, in Stratford and Challenger level schools is a lot better. Obviously, everyone's situation is different, and if you can afford it, then it's a completely different ball game. But purely in terms of the return on your dollars spent, these schools offer a comparable level of education quality, certainly way higher than the public school core curriculum at a much better price. The half-day rate is similar across most levels between Stratford and Challenger, but you will notice that for Stratford, the preschool finances are slightly more expensive, with the rest being relatively the same, both being a lot better in terms of value compared to schools such as Harker.